Welcome everyone in the Bright Lab. You can leave the door open. Hello, welcome, take a seat, join in. We're just getting started. We're here with Gino. Woohoo! Flew all the way in from beautiful Michigan.
Wisconsin.
I messed them up again.
That's fine.
Madison,
Wisconsin. Yes.
Madison, Wisconsin. Gino needs no introduction. You're made your way to fame slowly in Josh's shadows.
Exactly.
And now you get your own meet and greets nowadays.
Oh, I'm just there to introduce Graham.
But that comes with a big responsibility that people now also start complaining to him about R6.
Yes.
So I guess that's why he's holding this session. Do you want me to warn you when we have like 10 minutes left?
Yes. Time and I have a very loose relationship,
Great.
so if you want this to finish, you need to tell me when.
Great. Take it away.
Okay. And I don't know if we're going to want the mic, so hi everyone. We'll get started here in a second. I was hoping to be in a smaller room because I want discussion. That's why it's roundtable. And as you can see, there's only one of me because all of you signed up to be participants and you didn't even know. But this is really, as we're moving towards R6, this is the kind of stuff that I think is pretty important and want to make sure we are meeting all of your needs. So that's why we're here. Or not. Hey! So, quick agenda, the obligatory About Me slide, very quickly talk about what is normative, talk about some of the cool new things in R6, specifically the biggest thing is the additional resources, talk about that quickly, kind of have a preview slide of other changes. I'm focusing on since R4 because most people skipped R5, and we have disavowed R4B. It didn't exist, and anyone who says differently, I do not believe you. And then lots of time for discussion, and this is really, for me, part of the reason why I want to do this session was for that discussion with all of you. So, I'm a principal software engineer at Microsoft. See, it just pauses. We'll edit all that out later. Now it's just messing with me. Software engineer at Microsoft. I'm in research. We work on standards and interoperability, which is why I get to come here and do all this kind of fun stuff. Doing FHIR since 2019, which keeps getting further away every time I have one of these slides. Infrastructure, tooling, FHIR-I, FMG. I'm kind of quasi wearing my FMG hat today, FHIR Management Group. Technical Steering Committee, Argonauts. Did DICOM for a couple of decades before that, so for all of my imaging people out there, and then contact information. The slides are probably not in Whova yet, since I finished them this morning. So they will be in Whova, and if not, aka.ms/ginoc/dex, and it's on slides later as well, has all of my slides for at least the past 5-6 years. So it's all broken up by conferences, and you can see all the fun stuff. Keeps me honest so I don't reuse slides. So, R6, the big thing is normative. Who here actually understands what normative means in this context? One, two, more than I thought, because I'm not sure I do. But overall, there is several walls of text that describe what normative is. This is one of them from the versions page, talking about the ANSI process that it goes through. Essentially, there's a whole bunch of extra steps we take when things are normative to get a bigger community and feedback from other. The ANSI is where HL7 gets our accreditation as a standards development organization from. There's a bunch of extra requirements when we want to do a normative ballot and timelines and all kinds of fun stuff. There are more walls of text. This is also from the versions page, slightly differently, talking about what we can change afterwards. And so there's all these different rules about forward-breaking changes and backward-breaking changes and what are considered and who has to be consulted and all these different fun things. But really, it just comes down to stable, right? When we're making something normative, the point is that we're making it stable. So when we go through the ballot process, if most of us are used to the STU ballot process, where you kind of put something up for ballot, then you get your feedback, and then you apply those changes, and then you publish. Normative is different. Normative ballot, you put it up for ballot, you get all of your change requests, and after you make them, you go back to ballot. And you have to keep going back to ballot until you make no more changes. So we all have to agree on what becomes normative. Lots of fun. A lot of extra work, but it has a lot of good properties for people. So moving on from that quickly, and we'll come back, like I said, most of this time is for discussion. This is just for groundwork stuff. Yeah, it's all good. Introduced in ballot 3, and how many people here, here's another good one, have seen all the content about additional resources? 1, 2, okay, that's more in line with what I expected. So this was actually in the last draft ballot of R6, so we should have all been reading this. I didn't either, don't worry. But essentially, as we make everything normative, look at this. We can just give you the mic.
That's good.
So as we have all this normative, stable stuff, and we plan for release cycles being long so that everyone can count on that stability and have their implementations in practice and in production, we still have new things. You know, we look at the number of new resources that were added in R5 and the number of new resources that are being proposed in R6. We have greenfield things. We have things that we just started working on a year ago. They're not ready for normative. So how do we give normative and still work on things? Because that's what we need to do, is keep adding new things, keep making new things. Enter additional resources. And so really, this is taking, for people who are familiar with the idea of backporting things in BASIC and all that stuff, there's a whole host of issues which I could talk about for 45 minutes on its own, and did a little while ago, so don't test me on that one. But this fixes all those types of things. And so these are going to be in separate publications that are managed by work groups. It's still governed by HL7. You still have to get approval for new resource types to make sure we're not creating person next to patient, next to receiver of care, next to whatever. So all that's going to be there. And all that is with the idea that eventually, when you are ready with those additional resources, they get moved into core. And that way, when we release, like, we haven't finished discussing that, but you can imagine like 6.1 will add 5 new resources that have been already gone through this process and are ready to be normative. But that way we can keep making FHIR releases that are normative, but still keep working on things and letting people work on them. As I said, it is not using BASIC. There's a whole bunch of work that Graham did on all this, so I definitely recommend checking it out in the ballot. But better serialization, performance, usability for people who are familiar with using lots of extensions. It's a pain in the neck and not performant because you have to index everything by URI and go search over lists all the time and all kinds of fun stuff like that. This gets rid of all of that. R4, R5, all of the versions are closed in FHIR today, so you can't actually add something like a new resource to your capability statement. You can't add a new resource to a search parameter and define it. You can't add a new resource to an operation definition and define it while being conformant, I'll say, because obviously people all have unsupported resources that they've designed themselves and things like that, but the point is that they're not FHIR conformant. And so really it's a problem when, especially when you talk about regulations, it's hard to say, you will use FHIR in a non-conformant way. So this gets around all those types of things. So then, as I mentioned earlier, here's a list of some changes since on R4. So for level setting for everyone, 4.0.1 was released in 2018. So for all the people that are on FHIR R4, that was a minute ago, right? That, you don't think about it, but that's been years and years of work. And if you think of how much work all the work groups do every single week and every work group meeting and every dev days and all the new things you've seen, all that is since R4 for many people. Here are some of the highlights, and I was grabbing these by looking at the histories of the releases and ballots and things like that. So all the subscriptions framework stuff actually properly in instead of the backport stuff, which we can talk about in another session. Canonical resources were introduced. So when you're in R4, the canonical resource interface, none of those things really existed in R4. Not really existed, didn't exist. The NPM package format that we all use, that was defined after R4. That was added in R5. There was a whole type system rework underneath that we added like base and backbone type and all these different things. So the actual type structures inside FHIR all changed. There are a whole long list of new types. Again, if people are interested, I can show you how to find them if the links here aren't sufficient. But primitive types like integer 64, so 64-bit ints, if you need those, you need to move to at least 5, hopefully to 6. And then a whole host of complex types and metadata types, ratio range, virtual service detail, a whole long list of them. A plethora of new resource types. There are several resources that have been renamed, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones that have been added. Some of the other key things, using groups as patients. So for family groups, there's been a lot of work on all that kind of stuff. That's all been recent. In search, there's new search types, new modifiers, a bunch of clarity and improvements on prefixes. Terminology moved to THO. That was after R4 for people who don't realize that. So all of that kind of stuff. The async patterns, large resource operations. There's been a lot of work. So all of these kinds of things are hopefully reasons for you to move to R6. And so hopefully now we get to the interactive portion. So I'd like to open it up if that works, and the board will parkour around the room, getting the mic to people. And so these are just ideas, and to be clear, I have a whole bunch of more of them if we run out of discussion here, but it's pretty open. Well, there you go, Brian's ready. What are some of the challenges you expect? What kind of pushback do you expect to see? What things are you really excited for? You name it.
So say there's an operation that's normative.
Yes.
But
there's an operation that is normative.
in R6, I don't know if there is.
Do I have to keep saying all that? No, sorry.
In R6, suppose there's an operation that's considered normative, but we need to iterate on it for some reason. How does that work?
Well, if it's normative, you can still iterate on things that are normative. You just have to follow the normative breaking change rules. Operations are interesting because you can just make your own operation definition out of band. So even though the base definition is in FHIR core, you can make something that when you call it on a server, you're using the name code, I don't remember off the top of my head, I apologize, to invoke the operation. And so in reality, you can iterate on it however you want and keep doing all those things.
Well, so specifically in CRMI or CPG, like the apply operation might be normative. I don't know if it is, but if it is, and we're working on kind of enhancing it, how do we manage that in the work group?
So that is a discussion for the work group to be having with the FHIR management group. When we talk about which things actually go normative, there's this criteria we're working on, and Graham can probably speak on this better, but it's some combination of severability, stability, and everything else. I'll let him finish first, but if you expect that you need to make a bunch of breaking changes to something, we need to figure out what parts of the definition can be normative, or if it can be normative at all, those things, if you're expecting to be breaking it.
We already have experience with this because we already have normative operations that we're already iterating on. We are widely adopting, retrospectively adopting parameters that are defined in R6 in R4 terminology ecosystem and requiring them to be supported. Sometimes you have to work around existing mandated parameters, but you can add new parameters, and we haven't really found it to be a problem yet. partly because there's no there's no schema for the properties, so you can easily for parameters, you can easily pre-adopt them. If you, if you really have no idea what the operation is, don't put it in R6. But if it's, with apply, I don't think that it's going to be like recasting the entire way that you call it or the reasons you would call it. And so I wouldn't expect it to be a problem.
Thank you.
Yes. Runner.
Yes, definitely. Yes, if we can make sure every other question is from complete opposite side.
Get toward his step count in. I have a question on the additional resources. What are the thoughts about governance for them? Because we all have experience from V2 with a Z segment. We all got blown out of proportion. Mm-hmm. With FHIR extensions, we're seeing some extensions which represent the same semantics already. Yes. Here in Sweden, we have 2 extensions which got made by 2 different groups for the same national semantic.
Yes.
So how do we prevent a blowout of additional resources using some clever governance about this?
Yes, and that is because they are governed by FHIR Management Group. So if you want to add something that goes into the registry of additional resources, which is being managed not as part of the ballot publication cycle, but via, right now I believe it's just going to be a GitHub repo, but you're going to have to ask FHIR Management Group for approval and go through all of the approval steps, just like if you were defining a new resource in core. And so all of that piece for the official things will still be there and still be governed just like it is today. Now, obviously, as we all build out our tooling to support this, it will probably make it easier for people who are doing custom resources today. And it's not in this deck, I have it in one of my other ones, but every vendor has custom resources today. So we already know that people are doing that. This might, in some ways, make that easier for people, which we don't really desire. But the ability to have the stable core and then keep iterating on the new things, we think the juice outweighs the squeeze.
Tell everybody I'm talking about this Thursday morning.
You're talking about this Thursday morning?
The additional resources.
The additional resources. Oh, Graham has a whole session on Thursday morning about additional resources. So definitely see that. Maybe add it to my own as well.
I have a very simple question regarding additional resources. How many different resource types do you expect to exist in the standard? Thousands or tens of thousands resource types?
The amount of effort it takes to actually do all the modeling work and get everything done doesn't change. So I don't expect it to change any more than it has now. So if you go look at, since 2018, since R4, when R4 was released, there were, I want to say, 106 resources-ish. And now we're at about 150-ish. So that's more or less the pace that's been going. It might increase, it might decrease. I'm not very good at predicting the future, unfortunately. If I would, I'd have my lottery numbers. But overall, I don't expect it to change any more than it has now. And a lot of them, the other part is a lot of it is domain specific. So when you talk about like the medication, ingredient, composition, all that space, there's been a ton of iteration and everything because that group is working on getting that standardized. And so there's a slew of resources that are added or not added, depending on which day of the week it is. And then at some point, that'll all settle out into 3 to 5 new resources. But again, I expect it to keep going in that type of pattern.
Tens, not thousands.
Tens, not thousands. There you go.
Excuse me, can we have Graham on mic, please?
Oh. I'll repeat everything he says because we only have one mic floating. Yeah.
When you say every vendor has custom resources, I kindly disagree.
Sure, you can disagree.
Where did that come from? In custom resources, custom types, or just profile instances?
So when I was pitching all of the additional resource stuff, I went and looked up pretty much all of the major vendors that I could find, and I talked to people out of band, and all of the open source solutions have ways of doing it. The generic FHIR servers do, and many of the non-generic FHIR servers do too. That they have one-offs, often they're one-offs. There's a company I talked to that a team thought, yeah, structure definition's here, we can define whatever we want, and the project was done before they found out, no, you can't just define new resources. But all the work was done. And they said, well, we can either start over all the work or we can just quietly use it in our system. Okay, they do. There's national systems that have this. So it's something that people are dealing with today.
Right, but I think there's a difference between having the capability to do it
yes,
and not do it, go
yes,
through with it, and then actually do it. Because I can certainly list a range of systems and setups
yes,
and vendors that do not do it deliberately.
Yes.
So it's not everyone.
Yes. No, I will try to amend my earlier statement to say almost all of the vendors that I could check with and open source systems that I could check with have some sort of capability to support that functionality when and if they deem it is appropriate.
Yeah, yeah, it may be worth not saying that everybody's doing it because that would sort of, that encourages a sort of tacit, yeah, let's all do it then. But
yes.
So my point was about additional resources. I think the name additional resources does make it sound like everybody's going to be making these things and people are expecting there to be thousands of them. So I wonder, until I saw Graham and maybe your presentation at the working group meeting, I thought this was a free-for-all. And you have to say we're not using BASIC. I mean, yeah, but of course we're not using BASIC.
Yes.
So maybe some other name, something like interim resources or interim core, but it just sounds from that word that it's a free-for-all. So maybe a bit of marketing needs to be done.
I definitely agree additional resources can be challenging. Naming things in general is challenging. I would, as a first step, recommend filing a JIRA ticket. This is in R6 already, so you can go file a ticket to change the headings and descriptions, and we will discuss it at FHIR. And any suggestions are more than welcome, because I personally am terrible at naming things as well. So, yes,
yeah.
Jose.
If we have, so looking at the cadence of releases for this, so if you have a dozen resources, are they going to be released at the same time every year? Any thoughts, or is this per working group? How is that going to happen? Question one. Question two is, if I have a need if I feel I really need any resource called data access request, for example, is there any plans that this would still fit into the pattern, the request pattern, and therefore that it will be listed in the value set that lists the FHIR resources? How is that infrastructure going to work?
Yes. Okay, so for question one, and I apologize, I have had very little sleep. Question one was? Cadence. That is not set in stone yet. So we have discussed the option of saying, every period of time of your choice, whether it's quarter, 6 months, whatever, we say, we're going to publish a pack that has all this stuff. I personally don't like that approach. I prefer to see work groups managing these things in IG packages independently, because some work groups meet twice a week on a given topic and can iterate, in one quarter a significant amount, and other work groups meet, twice a year, and they can work on this at a connectathon, and having it every 6 months is just version fluff that bothers everybody. And so it's still an open discussion. Definitely comments, feedback, hit us up. There's threads for this on Zulip, and obviously tickets, and if not, also reach out to anyone on FHIR Management Group, where we'll be having some of that discussion. For the second question, that is a lot of what's described in the additional resource stuff. I don't want to steal Graham's thunder, but essentially it's changing things, changing a bunch of the bindings to say that they point at not just the, for instance, FHIR all version resource types, but the value set contains those codes and from this other terminology that we'll be managing as we approve resources. So that's why it's not a free-for-all. You still have to get them approved. You still have to go through a cycle. You still have to get all that stuff done. And then they get added to that value set so that then people do have access to them. Yes?
Hi. Opening a slightly different can of worms.
Of course.
We've got various national jurisdictions
yes.
that have defined core standards. Mm-hmm. Being in the UK, I'm looking at a core standard that is based on 401. Yes. I think that's quite a popular choice for that sort of work. Now, when I look around, I can see that I don't think there's much in that core standard reflecting its intent, which is making sure that UK stuff is going to be defined in the same ways as UK stuff by all the people who use it, that is necessarily sensible to pin to 4.1.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it might be possible to encourage these jurisdictions not to pin on a specific generational standard by having more of a methodology whereby that kind of core definition could be made sort of separated out from the step change of 4, 5, 6. Because as Magentus, we would go across Australia and the UK. In Australia, we're further ahead on FHIR, working on Australian core. There's our customers are beginning to ask for it in the UK. We're very much customer driven, and of course, UK regional jurisdictions are going to be referencing UK core, aren't they? So you can see the issue here, and I think it would really help us to be taking full advantage of FHIR and supporting the whole ecosystem well in the products that we put out there if we can solve this particular issue.
Yes, thank you, and that is a great discussion, and I actually have an open task to draft a cut of updated guidance that we want to be able to share with regulatory authorities, discussing versioning. A lot of that really doesn't feel right to me personally until after R6 is released, because moving from 4 to 6, you will have problems. If you have your core on 4, you can't just drop in 6, because there are things that happened, particularly if people haven't looked at R5. There's changes. A lot of resources are not normative yet because R6 hasn't been published, and so things that were much lower maturity than most people expected have breaking changes in them. And so once we hit R6, hopefully we can, and we have a whole lot of versioning discussions about things like, can you at least pin not to the patch version, like hopefully the regulations. Now everyone's been able to do 4.01 since 2018, but in theory they could have said 4.0.0. And if you pin to 4.0.0, you're in a world of hurt because you can't even download 4.0.0 from most places anymore. And so there's a whole set of things that, guidance that we hope to build on that. And again, that's where we need feedback and guidance from all of you to say, is that helpful? And if we're saying yes, then we will spend our time and effort doing that. Again, I will note we're mostly volunteers. So we do have to have signals in order to keep pushing on some of those things. So definitely thank you, and that is definitely a very valid concern.
Just wanted to give you the chance to...
Oh.
We very definitely want to get to that point after 6. That's the whole point of everything. But we're sure not there right now. When I look at the national cores, they're bound to specific things in version 4 that have changed. And the whole point of 6 is to get to stability so we can move away from this problem. But it was always implicit, explicit, part of the plan. That's where we were when we released R4.
Yeah, thank you. And I know he has an order, yes.
So my original question was very similar to the one that just got asked, so I will go with the second part of...
Perfect.
How do we avoid R4C?
Oh, that's very simple. You don't have to do anything. I think there is more than one person in this room who would no. Just no. Yes, Graham has veto, so I'm not concerned because I would, if he didn't try to use it, the first whisper of R4C, I would call him every 5 minutes until he vetoed it, so. Yes.
Gino, I'll fire one of your questions back at you because I know you've been working in this space for cross-version interoperability.
Oh,
what are your expectations on
That's
it?
Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday is cross-version extensions.
Thursday it is.
Yes. I expect, especially for the core things that are released in R6, we will continue to build the cross-version extensions for them. They are not simple to build. There's a lot of time investment in there, and they are clunky, for lack of a better term. It'll have to happen because anytime you have a transition period, if you have regulation on 4.0, and you need to move to 6.0, there has to be time where we can support implementers in both. And in order to get data parity, we need the cross-version extensions. So there is an expectation of that. How that will interact with additional resources, I don't know yet. We can talk about it more. I think that's on Thursday. I have the tutorial and the Let's Build after that. So we have plenty of time to discuss the cross-version part to your heart's content.
So around migration, a lot of servers have kind of SLAs around deprecation, things like that, that say, we will keep this API running for 2 years, and we'll give you that notice until we stop using a specific endpoint. Not getting into the wormhole of doing 2 different versions in the same server, that's probably different as well.
Yes.
Do you think it makes sense for the FHIR community to have an opinion on what that SLA in general looks like, so that we don't have one server doing a week, one server doing 2 years kind of moment?
I will say I have opinions on everything. So I will happily give it. HL7 recently retired DSTU2-ish. Did it officially retire, or it's just pulled from everything? Graham, yes. Ward, I think Graham would like the mic. Thank you. So from that aspect, yes. I think, some sort of expectation, but also I will firmly say no, because at the end of the day, they're your customers. And so you have contracts with them. If you signed a 10-year contract, I'm not going to be the one to tell you you need to violate your contract. I'm not going to be liable for that. My wife is an attorney. I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. But from that aspect, I think having some general expectations is great, but I would be very uncomfortable saying something like, oh, it's going to be 2 more years or anything.
So we retired DSTU2, I think it was 3 years ago now. I retired, supported the tools for it at the end of last year. I removed the code this week for version 2 from the Java code, except for the core Happy support, because Happy's not removing version 2 support because of user request. So it's got legs, that one. And there are still trading ecosystems based on R2. It's not our business to make rules about that, and typically governments do, and there will be governments going, right, everybody, we want you to move as quick as possible, so we're going to leverage that, as with all the tools that we have to leverage you, and there's others going, nah, let's let other people bleed, we're going to sit here and wait. But I can tell you this, James and I have agreed that for R6, we will be releasing as part of the base Happy that you can have an endpoint that does both R4 and R6 using the version header, and you can choose whether the backend, the data store behind it, is 4 or 6. And then we'll be maintaining that going forwards, so that for Happy users at least, it simply won't matter.
With an asterisk.
Well, yes, there's a few new things that we will blow up if you try and do with R4, but generally that's where we're going.
Yes.
Sticking to the back and forth.
Yes, perfect.
Will it only support R4 and R6 with the version header?
You're going to support R4B in that as well, right?
No, but I was thinking about R5. R5, yeah. Or will you only support R4 in this?
Okay, so Graham's response is someone will have to pay for that.
Give him money.
Since I have the mic.
No. First, because you've been already.
Sorry, Joseph. So I have a question about sort of like versioning for software. So at the moment, if we try to use like R4 model, like the namespace is included in the model as it's R4.patient or R4. Whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think? Do you think after R6 there will be a point where the versioning doesn't really matter that much anymore, where sort of the version would disappear from the namespace of the resource types, because then, when I'm trying to use a library, like in any software, I don't really call sort of like v1 dot serialization or v2 dot whatever library I'm depending on, right? So that's part of the software kind of versioning.
Yes.
So do you see like it's kind of a...
Yes. I have a lot of opinions on this, and a lot of people also have a lot of opinions on this. Graham is really wishing he had a mic attached to his head right now. It's hard in FHIR because of the way the whole system is to decouple that, but we know that. And so that's a lot of the point of making all of these normative changes, is because once you have the normative things working, the hope is, yes, that's all we can do. If you update your software because we're 2 years into R6 and there's a 6.1 or whatever that happens to add a new element, that all the SDKs and everything, all the guidance we describe, will make sure that that continues interoperably. And so from that point forward, you don't need it because it should be compatible. If it's not compatible, we've done something wrong, and you should come shake a stick at me.
So that's to say that will be the expectation.
That's the hope.
Yeah, so first make sure that when you shake a stick, it's at Gino, not me. But my intention for the Java reference implementation is that I am not generating specific versions after 6. I will, when we eventually, maybe one day, release 7 and 8 and 9, then I will go through and regenerate the same code with runtime flags that you can query to say, am I using this field or whatever. So that's, for those of you who use Happy, the R6 code, when I generate it in a few weeks' time, it will go into org.hl7.fire, not org.hl7.fire.art, whatever. And then we'll be maintaining that going forwards. That's the plan.
Yes. And on the C# side, that is also, we've already started moving things, like a lot of the conformance resources are already that way. And we just have internal flags for saying, this is only available since R5 or different things like that. And then as long as the things are compatible enough, we can all get away with that. And so I think all of the tooling authors that's what we're all trying to get to.
Does that mean that we'll have, so this means that we'll get rid of the cross-version structure maps between the resources, so especially for additional resources?
No.
So we'll publish, release them on every quarter or something?
So to clarify, without getting into everything from Thursday, there is a repository that exists that has a set of concept maps and a set of FML, several sets of concept maps and some FHIR mapping language files that are maintained-ish between versions and work-ish between versions. Some people in this room have put in a fair bit of work on the specific things they needed. They are neither complete nor correct in all cases. And I've been doing a ton of that, dealing with that. I consume that as one of the starting steps in the cross-version extension generation pipeline. There's a lot to fix. So once I'm done with all the cross-version extensions, we're going to regenerate that. Brian Postlethwaite has already put himself forward to say he'll do the FHIR mapping language updates, and I will probably do all the concept maps updates based on what we've learned in that set. That said, I have an open item to talk because the FHIR mapping language structure map resources can't say the things we need to say right now. And so that's one of the problems for reference. No, we'll talk about that on Thursday. But those exist, and we will probably keep updating them at least until we get to 6. After we do 6, you'll probably still need them, sadly. Hopefully not, but at some point, going back to the earlier, if we're not using R4, we don't have to, or R4B or R5 or whatever, then it's much less of an issue because you should be able to just upsert your models compatibly. And so then we don't need the extensions.
I meant for the additional resources. So if you have a new resource and you version that, how is that going to work?
That is because the additional resources have versioning info in them, I believe. Well, without... Yes. They're already versioned, so you don't need to worry about it. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And so so there's the resource type, and then there's the URI, and it's the canonical that has the version. And so you don't need it there either, because if you're going to support, 1.2 of Jose's new resource, you support 1.2. Like, there's no point in making you go back and grab all that, make extensions, serialize it as basic, break all your search parameters, break all your operation definitions, break your capability statement. And that's a lot of what drove all this, is our experience is doing this with the subscription backport. Everyone who has to add that support has to add the support. That's the bigger lift. How it's serialized, that doesn't matter to them, and so let's make it less painful instead of more painful. So hopefully we can do away with them. Oh yes, we're getting close, but...
So going through process right now that could happen. So many resources from R5 won't get to R6 because they're not mature enough. They will get into additional resources, won't they? Interrupt me if I'm wrong.
Well, as far as I know, yes. That sounds like the plan.
Let's say some of these resources are getting mature and mature over time.
Yes.
And no major change came to them. And suddenly we say, okay, that's good for R6.4, now R6.4.
6.4.
And the canonical of the resource will change.
But the name does not. That's why they're managed by HL7 and FHIR Management Group. Because when you make your resource, you have your full URL, but you also have to grab the name. And so if you want to call it, we're not going to approve whatever your URL is, you can't call your new resource patient. You already have a patient. And so that name won't change. And so then once it gets added into everything else, all of the references, all of the short IDs, all that kind of stuff, they'll all still be compatible.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool, thanks.
Yep.
For additional resources, is there any thought of whether it would be allowed to have more what I will call meta resources, like search parameters or subscription, or things that a FHIR server implementation needs to take extra work in order to make work?
Yeah, of course. Every resource, if you're using a resource, you're going to have to do some work at some point. And so the distinction between something like an infrastructure resource or a clinical modeling resource or a whatever, to me, they're all work. If we see a need for them, none of us have the time to just be defining these things just for funsies. And so by the time we get to the point where you're defining a resource and doing all of these steps and going through all the approvals and filing your paperwork and getting your work group approval and getting your FHIR management group approval and doing everything else, there is already a community committed to making that happen. And so by the time you get to that point, I'm not going to differentiate between those sets. And
I have a similar question. Will there be additional primitive and complex types?
Hopefully not. That kind of thing will probably have to wait for the next point release to happen. I don't think we have any plans of making them external at this point. Primitives in particular are super painful, and if you have some sort of concept for a primitive that you can't describe today, please let us know immediately, because we would like to make sure that that's done before we release 6. But that said, the only primitive added in years has been the 64-bit int. There are some more complex types that got added, but we can represent those as backbone types and things like that in interims. There are plenty of places where we did that, where like dosage used to be just a subset in a resource and eventually moved into a complex type. So we have a good path for those without needing to lean on additional definitions and all those other things. So
that's it. Any closing remarks from you or Graham? What's next? How does this continue this
Thank
week?
you. Yes. So again, be engaged, please. We're looking at the R6 freeze happening in November, content freeze. So if you have any thoughts, any feedbacks, names you would like to see differently, whatever it is, please, please, please go read those parts of the spec. please give us the feedback, file JIRA tickets, reach out to us on Zulip. I'd say Skywrite, but it's a little gray, so I don't think I'd be able to read very well. But please be engaged, please let us know. And, continuing on, any of the questions, concerns, things that you would like to see, things that you know will be holding you back from being able to implement it, let us know. We want to, as an organization, we are all trying to make sure that this is successful and as painless as possible for everyone. And so please do continue to be engaged, and you all are because you're here. So definitely reach out to all of your colleagues who couldn't be here as well, and please forward all of those kinds of questions to them. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you very much,
and
Gino.
thank you for it. And Grant.